Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Lyss, and I have a very special guest with me today here to break down the, a 5-3 win for the Winnipeg Jets over the Philadelphia Flyers. I am joined by Megan. If you're on hockey Twitter, there's no way you don't know Megan. What do you do? They work for Broad Street Hockey, and, you'll find them all over with the random takes on the Philadelphia Flyers that never fail to make me laugh. So, Megan, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I am so excited to have you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So today we are going to break down this Flyers win. Jets are coming on a back-to-back here. We're breaking down this Jets win. Jets are also coming on a back-to-back. I'm switching up the names here. So I was, hoping that the Jets would come out not flat-footed and come out and hopefully take advantage of a team that's a little bit lower than them in the standings. And for the most part, I believe that they did accomplish that tonight. So for the next, 30 or so minutes, Megan and I are going to chat about just that. So Megan, first things first, why don't you tell us a little bit about your initial thoughts on what you heard and saw in this game tonight?
Yeah, so one of the main talking points just surrounding the Flyers after this game is definitely going to be the goalie. So Felix Sandstrom is first time in net in a while, and he's coming off of a stint in the AHL. We liked our Samuel Ersson, our other backup goalie, but we needed to get one of them back up from the AHL just so that there's not like an issue there. So we were hanging on with some injuries and stuff, but he was untested, but and then I think that played into a little bit of how those 3 goals were first scored, which was just insane to watch. And it was very Flyers of them because they did, it's tradition for them to be pretty bad in the beginning and then slowly get better, see if they can overcome that. But,
Yeah, no, that definitely was the case early on. And super quick, I'm going to take my Be Real as we continue with this because it just went off. But
I know I just took mine. I was like, oh my gosh, perfect timing.
But yeah, that early start was definitely I don't know, I was a little bit surprised to see that coming off so hot, and that makes sense, though, if you see that that's a theme for the Flyers, because it was definitely a quick start for the Winnipeg Jets, and I was happy with the start. I definitely thought all 3 of those goals that they scored were quite nice, and they worked for them and whatnot, but like you said, the Flyers definitely picked it up as the game went on. But let's talk a little bit about the goaltending there on their end and kind of what you saw, and then I'll sort of pick up on what I saw from our end and how they were able to take advantage of maybe some of the weaker areas there.
Seemed like just inexperience. He got better as the game went on, although if I remember, was it the 4th goal was a little
yes.
yikes on his end. Yeah, it was kind of like
there,
that. Yeah, he should have gotten that one. So it was, I think as a first game back, it's kind of what you expect. I guess we've gotten stomped by a few teammates or by a few other teams before. I'm thinking like really good ones like the Leafs, Boston, they just came in and we got wiped once or twice. But the Flyers have been good at, getting their feet under them under kind of even matchups. I admittedly have not been following Winnipeg that much. But I know that they're fighting for the first spot in that one division. So they're pretty good. So I'm thinking that's maybe what we kind of assumed coming in, was that it was going to be a little bit of a tougher matchup. But he did need to get some games in. So, might as well.
Absolutely. And was that there was no injury or anything like that made Carter Hart not play tonight? It was just his night off?
Good question. I'm actually not sure. I have admittedly not been following too much because I've been hoping that they have been losing. So it was nice to pop back into Flyers world for a little bit. Especially after the Ivan Provorov thing. I was just I'm not. Yeah, we'll get into that.
Absolutely. And we will definitely get into that. Yeah, that's definitely something I want to make sure that we chat about tonight. And he particularly, he was one of the Flyers' goal scorers tonight and all that kind of stuff. And he also got hit in the face with the puck. So, LOL. But for at least from the Jets' perspective in this game, I thought that, actually, I lied. Not from a Jets perspective. From the Flyers perspective. Again, similarly to you, Megan, especially these out-of-conference teams, I spend a little bit less time watching all their games and all those sorts of things. So tonight I found that the Flyers had a really strong start with like just straight-up aggression. And I was, following a couple of different people on Twitter, notably shout out Charlie O'Connor. I always check out to see what he has to say.
My fave.
Perspective. Yeah, absolutely. Great dude. But, from the Flyers perspective, because he'll tweet a little bit more from there and what he saw in that game. And he was talking about how this team definitely has a lot of fight in them and they don't give up on that a lot. And that was definitely, to me, you could tell pretty clearly into that the second period when they were able to score those 3 back-to-back goals. Like, that's definitely not a team that gives up, because when you give up 3 goals in the opening 8 minutes of a game, it's pretty easy to just concede on this one and hope to regroup for the next. And I definitely saw right out the gate that there was a lot of jump to the team, and it made things a little bit harder on the Jets. But one thing that I thought, they were just a little bit more scrambly than some of the stronger opponents that I think I've seen the Winnipeg Jets play against this year. And I thought that the Winnipeg Jets were able to, at least kind of from what I saw and what I observed, they were able to spend a little bit more time thinking, because I felt that the Flyers were just a little bit less structured and calm and collected than some other teams, so that they weren't jumping on the pucks immediately. So say a defenseman gets the puck on the point or something, the guy is a half second away instead of a quarter of a second away. So there's that little bit extra amount of decision making time that the Flyers were able to kind of give to the Jets, almost in that sense. So I thought we were able to see a little bit more strength from the Jets in that capacity, in creating a bit more instead of the defenseman from the point just pushing it down the boards or firing at the net. They were able to make more calculated passes, or they were able to actually put the puck where they wanted to because they had a little bit more time. Would you say that that's something that you've kind of noticed with the Flyers? Like, is that, I think it's something that maybe you see with some teams that are they have a little less in the win column. It seems to be kind of a pattern, but would you say that that's kind of aligns with what you would say the Flyers are up to tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of common throughout the season. You kind of like the defense, I mean, all around the defense for the past 2-3 years here has been the real issue, and they just have not patched up the holes that they've needed to. Apologies, I wasn't following through the entirety of that. I was trying to look up if Carter Hart is injured or not. I think it was a matter of getting Harrison back down just for AHL purposes, for
Makes
contract
sense.
Purposes. So I think it might have just been a rest day. He was placed on concussion protocol back in December, but I think they reactivated him. They might be taking him a little bit lighter in, which would be good.
That's definitely good if that's the case.
Yeah. I have to do a little bit more research in that department. But so you're talking about defense being just kind of sloppy.
A little, yeah, and just not quite as sharp on individual plays and whatnot.
Yeah, that's the main issue. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I remember it's Tortorella, so that's our head coach.
Always the disclaimer.
He is on top of that. He was brought in to help make this team better defensively, and I would say that he has done that, because we're not absolutely bottom of the standings, which can be good, can be bad, depending on exactly what you want for this team. But it's been kind of a ride seeing his defensive structure being implemented. It was a little messy in the beginning. Then we had a pretty good win streak going after everyone kind of got the handle on things. We got guys coming back from injury, really big guys coming back from injury, which is great. And then, kind of sliding into this little stretch where it's a little bit more disorganized than it has been, but as for as sloppy as some of those that defense looks, it's much better than it has been, which is it depends on game to game, team to team, but it's you get some gaffes here and there, especially with players like Tony DeAngelo and Ivan Provorov. There's no way that you can have a full game that's absolutely solid. We don't really have that good first pair that can just play solid minutes all the time. So it is a struggle. And then we've got more offense than we have in a long time, which is good. So we can score goals and we can do some defense, but it's just not enough. It's not there. It's not the system anymore, because that's fully implemented. People are Kevin Hayes, even like there was some like brushing up there against John Tortorella about like, maybe not following like the get back on the puck real quick, like being a little bit lazy in some senses, but like even he's like on board, like, so I mean, you can chalk it up to like talent at that point. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that makes a lot of sense with the whole systems thing. And with any new coach, it obviously takes some time to sort of gel. And like you said, like there's probably the gelling has kind of settled a little bit more and they're, figuring it out. But I do think that a team like this, like the top end talent is at the end of the day kind of an issue where it's like, with the Winnipeg Jets, for example, we'll watch a game and it's like the Jets are playing terribly, but you get one lucky break on a breakaway or a penalty kill or, power play, and you have Kyle Connor or Nikolai Ehlers out there and he'll score a goal because that's what they can do. And that's huge. As much as you can look at systems and structure and the different strength of your lines and whatnot, at the end of the day, if you have a guy who can score almost at will, it helps a lot in that department. So, but I noticed tonight that Travis Konechny in particular, like, dude's on the power play. He's running all their 5 minutes. He's running their penalty kill. Like, he's out there. Like, I think they're really, they're guys that are good at hockey. They're using them up.
Yeah, I would say Travis Konechny and Scott Laughton have become, I mean, Scott Laughton has always killed penalties, but Travis Konechny, like, he's got some like shorthanded goals this year. I mean, obviously, other than the fact that he's like shooting an insane percentage, like he is like absolutely revitalized to the player that we thought he was a little bit ago. And then he had like an off season or two where it wasn't quite there. But he's been all of our offense for like a little bit there. And he's been the one guy we can count on to like really score a goal. That's transforming into like Kevin Hayes recently has been like really on it, which has been great. But Travis Konechny, if Kevin Hayes wasn't going to the All-Star game and like, they gave that to him for obvious reasons, he's been through a lot these past few seasons. He's had a lot of injuries, had a lot of like personal struggles as well. So, here for that, but Travis Konechny would be going if he wasn't, just because he has been something about like John Tortorella. You see it in every system that he goes into. He has like a guy that just like, he transforms. I'm thinking like, was it Werenski in Columbus where he did like the same thing? Like he transformed this like kind of guy who's having a down year, but has a lot of raw talent, like just really like revolutionized his game. And now he's like a real like two-way player, which is never how you would have described Travis Konechny like 2 years ago. Like he was just someone who scored goals. And then he was just someone who got assists last year. And now he's someone who's earned being on the penalty kill, earned being on the power play, like is out there all of the time and for a good reason. And for that reason, people are also talking about trading him. So I personally, as someone who fell in love with the game of hockey because of Travis Konechny, don't want that. But I understand that like, selling high is important to this team. Despite the fact that we're not tanking, just to retool, that type of thing. So frustrating, but
retool is my favorite word. No, absolutely. Anytime we get into like a GM buzzword, Megan's just gonna like pass out on the couch. It's all fine. But I want to take a quick look in the chat super quick because Robert says hello. Robert Malloy, our favorite chat mod in the world. We love Robert. Says hello to Megan. And Dave says that Adam Lowry has no goals in the last 20 games. I want to talk a little bit. Adam Lowry is just beloved across nations. I don't think I've ever met anyone who doesn't like Adam Lowry. We adore. And I don't expect a ton of offensive production from Adam Lowry because his whole shtick for the last couple of years, has been, he'll go out there and he'll play the hard grinding minutes against the best lines in the NHL every single night. Pick the team. Their best line is going out against Adam Lowry, and he goes out there, and it's just a matter of, surviving through that and not letting that line score as much as you possibly can to try and give the top two lines a little bit more time and space to do exactly that. But no goals in the last 20 games I do find a little bit surprising, and also it's not great considering that he has had some scoring wingers playing with him. Morgan Barron has been fantastic. He's had a couple stints with some other guys and whatnot, and he also gets some power play time. So, you'd hope to see more goals from that guy, especially considering that, this Winnipeg Jets team considers themselves to be extremely deep. And if you want to go into the playoffs, you need scoring from all three of your lines. So it's interesting that he hasn't scored in the last 20 games. It makes some interesting sense. But what I was saying before about him being on the power play tonight, just like last night, the Winnipeg Jets did have quite a bit of time at 5-on-4 this evening with some calls going against the other team. Megan, any thoughts on the Flyers penalty kill tonight? And then I'll talk a little bit about the Jets power play.
Yeah. I don't know if it's been like a hot minute since I've watched hockey or something, but there were a lot of like penalties called in this game, or like a good amount at least, because there were quite a few whistles I remember, which is pretty good. So it's equally as good as like the Flyers penalty kill has become. Their power play has just gotten, I think, like they're just not great. Like I think it's 31st in the league. Am I going crazy? They cannot score for their life, but like
it might be.
Yeah, I mean, that's par for the course with this Flyers team the past few years. So like, I'm not surprised. So it was, I kind of expected as much, but it's interesting to see that back and forth between those special teams. I don't know. I mean, who got more? If I can't remember off the top of my head.
I want to say the Jets had more power plays. But yeah. You keep chatting. I'll look it up.
Yeah. There were some ugly ones. Like a wrist from like one of our guys that was just the most ridiculous thing. I'm trying to think. And then like one right after that, like they just kept tripping themselves up, which is kind of again, when you have a Tony DeAngelo on your team, when you're playing that like harder type of, I mean, it's not stay at home. That's not what's happening, but like that kind of harder game, that's just going to happen sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah. But I mean, the more practice that these guys can get like on those different special teams, the better. Because I feel like, I mean, more than anything this season, it's just like a way to get all these guys more experience, and just kind of more experience in systems, more experience for the younger guys coming up, hopefully, and just like all around. But like, you can't have that much sloppiness, like especially when you have a brand new goalie in net. Like you want to play clean so you can protect him, because like if you're on the penalty kill that much, I mean, it exhausts the players, it exhausts the goalie. Like
absolutely.
Yeah. It's just not a smart thing to do to, play that aggressively. I mean, it's not the ugliest game that I've, heard or seen, but it wasn't pretty. So that's not what you want to do in front of that kind of goalie.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, for example, specifically, the Jets had that 1 5-on-3 for that period of time when Konechny he had a penalty that he got while they were on the power play, or while they were on the penalty kill, pardon me. He got another one because he was doing some great chasing down, and the penalty was called like behind Dave Riddick or something like that. Like it was pretty good. And I saw some people saying, you're okay with that penalty being taken and whatnot. But I just looked 5-4 for penalties there. So Flyers had 5, Jets had 4. And I think for the Winnipeg Jets power play, like, listen, like I know that they have 5 shooting threats on on their first power play unit in particular. Obviously you got Josh Morrissey out there who can score from the point, or any kind of, he can move in there when there are some gaps. Pierre-Luc Dubois, great at potting those in front. Nikolai Ehlers, Kyle Connor, and Mark Scheifele anywhere on the side there. Even in the slot, they can shoot, of course. I thought tonight that, when you have a power play that has as many talented guys as the Winnipeg Jets do, it's hard for it to look quote unquote bad. But again, 5 chances tonight, and they had like 9 power play chances yesterday or something like that. Like, I don't know if I'm loving what I'm seeing, in particular on the 5-on-3. I thought that they were so wide. Josh Morrissey was almost at the blue line, and the guys on the half walls were like almost at the outside of the circle, and it was like you got to squish in a little bit and make that penalty kill collapse a bit more to try and create those lanes for yourself, because I personally, on a 5-on-3, to me, there is never a need for a point shot, because you have your 3 penalty killing forwards so collapsed in front of the net. There's no lane there. So I don't understand why they were so, broad on that particular 5-on-3, but, you don't play a lot of those in a game, so it is what it is. But I kind of want to see a little bit more from the Jets power play personally, because, again, sort of going back to what I was saying before, specifically about the Jets having that extra half second to make a decision, which I thought led to less careless dump-ins and things like that, at least early on in the game. I want to see more of that on the power play. I know you don't always have the most time on the power play, but I want to see them make some smarter decisions with their puck movement, not just, always cycling it back up to the top guy or always trying to pass it through the seam when there are 6 guys in the way and you never get it through. I want more from the Winnipeg Jets power play. I think that they have the potential to do more there. Like, you have a lot of guys who are very, very talented, and their second unit is not strong, and it is what it is, but they don't have to play them that often. They just throw their first unit out there for as often as they can. But their penalty kill, however, on the other hand, was, I believe, going into this evening, was second in the NHL. When they showed that stat on TSN, I was like, whoa, nice. But Kevin Hayes, I believe, had 2 power play goals this evening, did he not? That's Winnipeg Jets 2019 fourth liner, Kevin Hayes, to you. But any thoughts?
I forgot about that. I think we got him from you guys, right? Like, he signed.
Yeah, he signed in Philly immediately afterwards. Yeah, he got traded from the Rangers to the Jets. He was their big move at the 2019 deadline. They lost in the first round in 5 games to eventual Stanley Cup champions, the St. Louis Blues, and then Kevin Hayes was out of there. And I do not blame him in the slightest.
Listen, for what it's worth, I've listened to a ton of Kevin Hayes interviews. I mean, he's not my most favorite player, but I like the guy from what I've seen of him. And he spoke about playing in Winnipeg, and he was like, they treat you like very right there. Like, everyone was like so kind to him when he was playing, and like, I can't say the same for Philly. We're a little bit mean. But he was like, it's cool. And you guys do like the white out thing, right? He was like, I remember him specifically mentioning that. But
it's pretty cool. So yeah, no, that's awesome. Before we jump into the hot topic of the day that I want to get into with Megan here, guys, for the first time ever, I'm going to try a pre-recorded ad roll. So we're going to give this a gander here. We're going to give it a try. If it works, if it doesn't work, we'll see what happens. But, as always, a message from our friends at Sports Interaction. So we'll give it a go and see if my internet can handle a pre-recorded video. Hey, Jets fans. Think you know what way it's going to go? Make your bet with Sports Interaction. Whether it's hockey, football, or basketball, Sports Interaction has you covered. Bet pregame, live and play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus, please play responsibly. Okay, I think I got it to work, so we'll see. I have the stream pulled up on my computer. It's about 30 seconds or so behind, so we'll see when we get there. But, so 5-3 win by the Winnipeg Jets out there. I thought in particular early on, it was like, 3-0. They're up to do not so bad, but I found that there were still quite a few, careless giveaways and things like that I wasn't a huge fan of, and it was just lucky for them that Philly wasn't capitalizing on it as much as some other teams have in the past. So, yeah.
And they're not great at that.
Yeah, which, thank God.
They'll fumble every chance. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's especially, when they played yesterday in a whole different country. Overall, happy with the performance, and I'm hoping to see them continue with, improving the power play and capitalizing on chances and not giving up as many in the future. So,
was this a back-to-back?
It was, yes. They played in Ottawa yesterday.
Oh,
yes.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and they kept the same lineup. Ville Heinola didn't draw in or anything like that. But they had their backup goalie playing, of course, and a couple of rebounds here, there, and everywhere that I wouldn't think that Connor Hellebuyck would have given up. But all in all, Dave Riddick, he does what a backup goalie needs to do, and I'm more than happy with him. It was fine. Couple of red light Dave moments or whatever people want to call them, but or red light Riddich, that's what it's called. There's big save Dave occasionally, especially at the end there when Philly had the empty net. There were some moments where Dave kind of bailed them out, which was great. But so that's kind of all about this particular game that we wanted to chat about. However, the man of the hour, derogatory, of course. This is our first time jumping on the stream in particular that I've wanted to talk about Ivan Provorov. Of course, this evening is perfect time too. It's opportune seeing as they are playing the Philadelphia Flyers this evening, and I also know that we're about a week or so out from Black History Month, which is one of the most informative months of the year, and it just kind of goes to show that there's a lot of room to grow in this sport, and there's a lot of stuff that we still need to do. So let's talk a little bit about Ivan Provorov, Megan.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it is not a surprise, just because as someone who has followed this team, they have not worn Pride jerseys before, and there's a very few particular players that, I mean, the roster switch around so much, but the two constants have been James Van Riemsdyk and Scott Lawton have been really, really, really outspoken advocates. And so it's really, really tough to see this kind of outshine all of the work that they've done. Just as someone who's like talked to the people who normally kind of are behind the scenes and working on these things, like there's a lot of people who care really, really deeply about expanding the fan base, and just to like watch that crumble like in front of your eyes is really nasty. But it's not a surprise. I mean, I've heard whispers just like behind the scenes, like as if you're kind of around enough people who are in the locker rooms or follow hockey, or I mean, even like no wags, like wives and girlfriends, you kind of get a vibe from some of the guys. And honestly, there's been a lot of whispers about trading Provorov. There's been a lot of whispers about kind of a disconnect in the locker room, specifically with him. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is part of it. I mean, we've got some really, really, really outspoken allies on this team. And just to watch someone like disregard fans like that, disregard possible teammates like that, disregard people working for the organization like that, it's I mean, it's a disgrace. It shouldn't have happened. For my own mental health, I think I was on Twitter being funny / serious about it for like a day, and then I don't know, I got some mess in my mentions and I couldn't think about it for a little bit longer, or for a minute longer. So I think that this current story is that I don't know if they did know or if they didn't know beforehand. I think they did know that this was going to happen beforehand, but like their press wasn't informed. So like they put out like a press statement after the incident, like right as people were going back into the locker room, which is not like a standard thing to do if you know this is something that is going to happen. It's never come up before because the Flyers, was their first time doing Pride jerseys, which they looked fantastic. I would have liked for them to mess with the logo a bit, but that's just me. I mean, like they had the rainbows on the numbers, they had the rainbows on the back, but it was very notable that like, oh, Ivan Provorov isn't playing, like, or he's not in warmups. Is he not playing? Is he sick? Is there some other kind of explanation for this? Because you want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. But then he comes out after the game, and I think Tortorella said it first, who also said some kind of annoying comments that he did not walk back, and in fact kind of retread afterwards, which is just the worst. But he clarified that he did it for religious reasons, which okay. And then later on, they also talked with Provorov, and he said it's just the same thing. I mean, he wouldn't say anything else. So it's, it's just a bit of a disgrace. I mean, I'm glad that the Flyers came out with a statement saying like, we support everyone, we support every fan, but it's really, really tough to see a player come out on the ice and just like flat out, not show support. It's the most like, this incident has been talked about so many times, but it is the most like basic thing you can possibly do. Like, it's just a jersey, dude. Like Tony DeAngelo came out and wore a fucking am I allowed to?
Yes, you are. Okay.
Okay. I was like, I gotta catch myself. Tony DeAngelo came out and wore the rainbow jersey. Like, and we are aware of his politics. We are aware of like what he has stood for in the past with his comments on Twitter. But it's, it feels like the least amount of like courtesy you can give to like the LGBTQ fans and community that you have. Like, and it really upsets me that like just an act that simple can disregard so much of the work that has been done behind the scenes. And it just shows you like how much more work we have to do, because for as much as like someone brought up that if he was scratched from that game, which like could have been an option, because if you don't skate in warmups, why would you skate in a game? You know what I mean? That's kind of, I mean, Tortorella scratched people for lighter stuff. I mean, he had some stuff to say about people not standing for the anthem. So I don't know. It just seemed so silly to me, but someone brought up it could be like a legal thing, like ramifications for like,
Totally, yeah.
yeah,
NHLPA
like,
stuff, yeah.
yeah, which is like, okay, but like they spoke beforehand and they knew this was coming, and like you couldn't have done like anything. Like, it's also the fact that he plays like 20 something minutes a night. Like, he's out there all the time. So I mean, he's not great at what he does. I'm surprised he scored a goal, which he's not a particularly offensive guy. Um, I think he got what he's coming for him. He got what he had coming for him when he got hit in the face with the puck. I'm terrible for like having a little bit of fun with that. But like how do you do that to like an entire, like, I just want him off my team. Like, we wanted him off our team for a while just because there were like situations in the locker room that was assumed to be him, like, and like he thinks he's better than he is, possibly. But it's really frustrating to see, and it like lowers his trade value too. Like, who wants a guy like that in the locker room? Like,
Not us. Yeah, no, absolutely.
no, not a welcoming guy. Like, it's really, really frustrating to see someone do that. And I had a feeling that there was a reason that they didn't do the rainbow jerseys for a bit, as to avoid some of that. But I was glad for all the players that did that, and all the people who went and were able to like benefit from showings of pride, because they've done a lot of work. But it just wasn't enough to balance out like the noise that ended up coming from this like weird protest from Provorov. So
yeah, absolutely. And it is the kind of thing where it's like you definitely, understand and validate the outrage from anyone coming, because like you said, you're sitting there, and visibility is so important in sports. And, these things, people might think that a simple jersey is just that, a simple jersey, but it's so much bigger than that when it's for someone who doesn't have a lot of representation in a sport. But it's so much bigger than that. And I think that, back to what I was saying about, obviously there's validation in being upset, but it's really unfortunate that it did drown out the noise around the good stuff that's being done by a lot of the players in the Flyers locker room. Because to me, that's the biggest and happiest thing to come from this, is that knowing that there are some players there who are doing some really great work to make their hockey community more inclusive, which is so fantastic. And, people have their choices and opinions and things like that. But, Gord Miller said it on Twitter, and people have said it before, freedom of opinion, and, freedom of speech and all that does not equate freedom of consequence from, people reacting to your speech and whatnot. And, if you go out there and you say, this is my opinion, but your opinion, completely disregards and acknowledges an entire demographic of people as, not, I don't even know what the words are. Like, it's difficult. People are allowed to be frustrated with that. And, I think the hockey community has really come together on this. I'm really lucky that, the organization that I work for, we've had some really productive chats in our group chats with the Game Over hosts and whatnot, talking about how much work there is left to do in the hockey world and how we can continue to make this sport more inclusive. But we have to keep talking about it, keep talking about the good, keep holding people accountable for the bad, and make sure it's always brought up in conversation so that hockey can be a better place.
Yep. I just hope it doesn't embolden any other player to like do a similar thing.
Oh,
I mean,
I didn't even think of that. Oh,
I know. I'm hoping that everyone kind of stands in solidarity with like, hey, this guy's kind of an ass. Like, what is going on here? And that's the majority of the opinions that I've seen and heard. But we know that hockey has like, I mean, it's 20 years behind like the norm, always progressive. Yeah, like, absolutely. In terms of accepting people. But I've worked with some fantastic people, especially in like the Philly community and area, who are doing like great work to get youth, and especially queer youth, in sport. And having that found family aspect of sports that is so important, especially if you don't have like the most welcoming community elsewhere. But it's always disappointing to see people who have access to so many possible resources have access to their teammates who are like, big advocates, allies, have been doing this for a long time, and just like refuse to take that into their opinion, and refuse to, stand on it and think about it. And yeah, it's just disappointing, but it was really heartwarming to see for the most part, outpouring of support, especially for the Philly LGBT community. I mean, like, people were making donations to just various spots around the area to help out and kind of balance out those negative comments, which was like wonderful. If you're able to monetarily support, do that, or just vocally. I mean, and if you're part of the LGBTQ community, which I am, like, it's difficult to hear those things, but know that there's like more people behind you than there ever are going to be like yelling in front of you. You know what I mean? But yeah, just make sure to be an ally, stand up, show support, and hope that Ivan Provorov gets like booted off this team in the off season. So he's not doing much for defense anyways. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. I remember going into that game, I was like, I heard some trade rumors. Is he scratched already? And then this whole shit hit the fan, and it was like, oh God. But and I believe in the light of hockey Twitter and all that good stuff, there's, who is it? Mio from Twitter, I believe, just designed a pride jersey for a hockey team, right? I was looking on Twitter and I couldn't find
any. She's done a few.
Yeah,
she's done a few recently. I remember, I think the first one was the Canucks. I have little stickers of that. Clarissa, also of hockey Twitter fame, came and visited Philly and dropped those off to me, and I was like, "Oh, nice things of all time." And I think I'm trying to think what other ones she's done.
I think there was one that
might have been Dallas, might have been, and I don't know.
But yeah, some amazing work being done by some queer artists out there for Pride Nights, which is fantastic. So yeah, we're really happy to continue to support, and it's great to chat about these things and keep the conversation going. So it's been a fun time, Megan, having you on the show. Thank you so much for coming out. Winnipeg Jets play again on Tuesday in Nashville, I believe. So they'll be back at home for a couple games. So it'll be super fantastic. And I just want to make a quick comment. Rudy in the chat says, keep politics out of sports. Rudy, I got to tell you, man, this isn't politics. These are people's lives. These are the fans who make this game so fantastic, and if they don't feel welcome in this sport, then that means we have work to do. That's not politics, that's the game of hockey. So
do 2 seconds. I have like the greatest thing to show you about that. Wait, hold on, I gotta take my headphones off.
She's moving around, she's talking. So
hold on, I just had this thing and I need to show it, and it's my favorite sweatshirt of all time. And it says, it's probably going to be mirrored, but it says, keep politics in sports, because that's where they belong. And believe it or not, everything that you consume is political.
No, that's super fair. And well, that's exactly it. Like, politics and sports, everything is political at the end of the day. Like, and everything isn't whatnot. But if the conversation involves hockey in any way, we keep it in there and we keep the conversation going. Because as soon as you start, neglecting to talk about things, that's when, problems arise, right? So that's why we're here. And, I'm thankful to have a platform with this company to continue to talk about these kinds of things. And, just to close off and whatnot, platforms. You can find me on Twitter, of course. My name is @LyssHood. You'll find me on Twitter talking about all things Jets. Megan, what do you want to plug before we sign off for the evening?
You guys can find me at Defenseman on Twitter. So that's defense and then mint, like the flavor. You used to be able to find me at BroadStreetHockey.com. I did fan cams for them, but unfortunately Vox has decided to shut down that website. We'll see what the future holds. But for now, I'm kind of on hold. I'm a college student anyways. I'm in art school. So if you want to follow my journey, you can go to @sweetestart, like sweetest, like something's the sweetest, art on Instagram.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, Megan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And we will see you all in Game Over on Tuesday next week, and for plenty of games leading up to the All-Star break. So take care, Megan. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining in the chat, and we'll see you next time.
Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.